Welcome to Hot Takes and Headlocks, the only show where I interview you, pro wrestling fans, about your love for professional wrestling. I'm your host, Joe Zuleta. We have a great one for you tonight, but before we get to our guest, hit a moonsault on that like and subscribe button on the Hot Takes and Headlocks YouTube page. And while you're at it, do the same for the Hardcore Sports Network YouTube page, the best YouTube channel where you get all things you need for sports, news, watch-alongs, live reactions. If you're watching live tonight, light up our interactive chat and be part of the conversation. Let us know where you're chatting to us from. The more engaged our audience is, the better we can make the show for you. And finally, if you want to leave us some feedback or you want to be on an upcoming Hot Takes and Headlocks episode, email me at hottakesandheadlocks@gmail.com so we can schedule you for a future show. And now, our guest tonight, he runs Geek Nation, the podcast network and Facebook group for all things sports and geek culture. This also includes his pro wrestling podcast, Breaking Ring Rust, coming to us live from Pennsylvania. Here is Matt, a.k.a. Magic.
Ladies and gentlemen, around the globe, you will bask in my glory.
We are basking in your glory. I wish I could be playing glory right now.
Oh, actually, I would come out to Glorious Domination.
Glorious Domination, really? Okay.
Oh, I love that. I love that theme. That's a great theme song. That was a great entrance from Bobby Roode.
Yes.
It was magnificent.
Yes, man. Magic, thank you so much for popping on here. It is my pleasure to have you on Hot Takes and Headlocks, man. Thank you for doing this, guys. We did this last minute. We set this up earlier today. I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So, I want to start this off. Let's start this. Let's go all the way to the beginning, right? Tell me about your earliest memories watching professional wrestling.
Well, I'm a Midwestern boy, even though I live in PA. I'm from Michigan, so I grew up primarily on WWF and AWA.
Okay.
So I'm an 80s kid, so I grew up in the rock and wrestling era. You know, the big bright lights and the extravagance, Hogan and Macho Man and Andre the Giant and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, like just so many big in your face characters. And wrestling was intriguing. It was fun. I was a amateur wrestler. The first sport I ever did was freestyle wrestling. My parents had me on the mat at age 4. So seeing a form of wrestling on television, I naturally gravitated to it.
Awesome, man. And do you remember what was the first pro wrestling match that you saw? Was it on TV? Was it live?
So the first match that I saw would have been on television. It would have been probably some Saturday morning episode of Superstars or something of that nature. It's tough for me to recollect the first one, but I can tell you the first one that made me want to, or they really made me like a wrestling fan, that solidified my early years. And that was Macho Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. And, in Pontiac, the Silverdome. That was the first pay-per-view I'd ever seen. And I got to watch it because it was such a big deal that it was happening, in Michigan. So many people just in the state were watching, even if they weren't huge wrestling fans. And the technical prowess that was on display in that match was second to none. And that kind of not only made me really appreciate pro wrestling, because as a freestyle wrestler, it's all about technical prowess. So seeing guys who could really, work in the ring was so much better for me as a fan compared to somebody like Hogan, Andre, who were slower, plotting, a lot of the punches and the leg drops and the big boots. That wasn't as intriguing to me, but watching that technical skill, the suplexes, the mat work, all the reversals, that really resonated to me as a wrestler and as a fan. And that spurred my love for the Intercontinental Championship, which is my favorite championship.
Oh,
And
wow.
that Intercontinental Championship match really ignited my fandom of pro wrestling.
I when I see video packages that WWE produces, right, and they're showcasing matches, right, especially from WrestleMania.
Mhm.
You'll see, you'll especially for the Intercontinental title, you'll often see Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, for example.
Yes.
I don't often see um uh
Macho and
the
Steamboat.
Macho and Steamboat, thank you, from WrestleMania 3. And I wish that match would get some more light shined onto it, because that is such a classic match, man. I
It
agree.
is.
There is so much going on there. I bet you that talent that new talent especially probably get told, I need you to go watch this match from WrestleMania 3, because there's so much in there to be able to pick apart and be able to learn from.
Absolutely. If you're a technical wrestler like I was, and if you decide to train, um, so not to go into a long story, but I did train for a little bit. I went to camp here in Pennsylvania as a teenager when Alpha Anawai Senior still had the Wild Samoan Training Center in Allentown, PA. And being that I was a technical wrestler with a technical background, when they want to teach you how to tell stories as a technical wrestler, because sometimes it is harder for the storytelling aspect, that is one match they tell you to watch, is Macho and Steamboat, because you have two excellent technical wrestlers who are telling a phenomenal story. Uh, and I agree with you on the aspect of Michaels and Razor Ramon WrestleMania 10 ladder match. It's the highest regarded Intercontinental Championship match, and it deserves the publicity and the hype that it gets. But right below it, the second best Intercontinental title match is Macho Steamboat, and it should get a whole lot more recognition, without a doubt. Um, it, it's
Absolutely.
it's just that right now when they do video packages, and Michaels is such, look, well, HBK is my goat, but Michaels is he's such a dominating, charismatic individual that it's tough to pull away from anything that he's in when you want to use an example of how to do a match, of what a match should look like, how a match should be executed. It's really hard to not give an HBK example when it comes to excellence in pro wrestling, and particularly in the ring.
Definitely, man. Definitely. So you're watching in the so you started watching the 80s, man, and
Yes,
and you're getting hooked. So as your love for professional wrestling is growing, who do you find being your heroes in that era?
that's a great question. It was it was a little tough because I really struggled to connect with some of the characters, because again, this is the 80s. We've got 80s into the early 90s, so you just got all types of you know wild and crazy characters that are going on. um I wasn't I wasn't a Hogan fan. Um, he was just kind of blah. He was kind of mad for me. I didn't hate him. Like a lot of people like started to hate him, especially in the '90s. I didn't hate him, but he didn't do it for me. As big as Andre was, I liked Andre in movies more than I liked Andre in the ring, and he was also really starting to battle health wise in the late '80s. So that was, I didn't get to see prime Andre. So it was tough for me to find, wrestlers that I really attached to. I would say the first one I attached to was Macho, because he was hilarious. His voice, thinking, like he was hilarious. And he had a great physique, but he wasn't super big. So even though I was a big kid, I appreciated more, again, because I was a freestyle wrestler. I appreciate people that were more agile, that weren't just big hulking guys. And WWF at the time was the land of the giants, and they were really promoting Big John Studd, Andre, um, King Kong Bundy, Sergeant Slaughter. You had these Hogan. You had these massive human beings,
Iron
and
Sheik.
yeah, Sheik. Like you just so many big bodies that I was just like, yeah. I just and watching them in the ring, it was just, I wasn't feeling them. So I really started to gravitate towards the Rockers. Were my favorite tag team. I started to really like watching Bret Hart, again, appreciating the technical prowess.
Yeah.
And eventually, when the Rockers split and HBK turned heel, I became a full HBK mark. Um, I and I was also a fan of Razor Ramon. And I became a massive click mark. I was marking out for the entire click, and those were my favorite wrestlers: Michaels, Ramon, Diesel, Helmsley, 1, 2, 3 Kid.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of the click. I started to become smarter as a fan in the early '90s there, and I loved the fact that most of them could go. I mean, Nash limited, but Scott Hall could work. Sean could work. Helmsley could work. Waltman could work. It's like when they got in the ring, you were going to see a show. They told a great story and they were entertaining. They were fun. They were rebellious. I loved their vibe. They all ooze cool.
Mm, definitely.
Shawn Michaels was cool in his own way. He was this country boy, but he had flair. Shawn was like Prince he was like the Prince of wrestling. He could dress in a way that everyone else would be like, you dress that way? That's a little suspect. But he was cool. He was manly doing it.
Yeah.
He was like Prince. Only Prince could get away with that in music, and only Shawn could get away with that in wrestling. And then you had Razor Ramon, who fooled so many people into thinking he was Cubano.
Me too. He got me with that as well, man.
He had me. I was like, this big Italian man. There's so many of us that he was from Miami, and he had so much. I mean, that oozing machismo, that was not just a gimmick. That man oozed charisma. He oozed machismo. I started walking around with a toothpick behind my ear, toothpick in my mouth. There you go. Nash being from Detroit like myself, loved it. You know, I started wearing a single black glove because of Nash. Like I started doing the Helmsley bow. After like I would do that playing sports, like playing football or basketball. I score a touchdown and people are doing the Deion Sanders dance. I do the Triple H Helmsley bow because I'm that cocky and that arrogant. Like I was full on click all the way. Loved it.
Those guys, each one individually, they didn't know it at the time, but each one individually had a huge impact on uh on pop culture at that time, right? Like if you're a kid, middle school, high school in that era, and you're watching either NWO, D Generation X, right? Like you're seeing the toothpick, like you said. You might be crotch chopping. You might be rolling around in an MWO shirt, right? Like each one did something. They contributed to pop culture in that way, right? Did doing did you ever do any of those things like in school or whatnot? And did you ever get in trouble for it?
Did I? Did I? I was notoriously known for it. See, I was not naturally a performer. I was a quiet kid. Um, However, I have a God-given gift for performance, being in front of people, controlling a room, working a crowd. I've spent time in active ministry as an associate pastor. I can be in front of people. That was not something that was natural for me, but because of my parents, I mentioned they had me in the wrestling mat at age 4. That's just you and that wrestler. You're the show. They also put a violin in my hands at age 4, and I was doing violin solos at age 6. So by age 6, I'm performing, Mozart, Bach, Chopin. I'm becoming accustomed to being a solo act, to putting the crowd in the palm of my hand. So as I'm growing and I'm watching these larger than life figures, and I'm resonating with their rebellious attitude, because even though they changed the years up until like 10 years ago, Gen X ended in 1982. So I was at the tail end of Gen X, and they were guys who were at the beginning. Like they were born like 65, most of them. So they were beginning Gen X, and I was tail end. So I felt that as they're part of that generation. I crotch shopped an incessant amount of times. Um, for for a kid, that would be that was that youth group, or for the kid that everybody knew, that was praying for everybody and telling people how much they love Jesus. When they got on my nerves, I was telling them to suck it like nobody else. I was I was oh my I even mixed it one time in high school, because that's when I was in high school, is when the attitude era was going on. I It's one person irritated me so much, I'll never forget it. I combined Val Venus's um, grind, and did that, and I finished it with the DX cross chop.
Oh,
Um,
that's I never thought of that combination before, and it makes sense. That's
It
such a
makes
cool
complete
combination.
sense. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No. And and the NWO part of it. I still have my NWO shirts from high school. I still got them. I have the black and white. I've got the red and black, and the black and red Wolfpack shirts. I was I was I was too sweet it constantly. That's how we, my football team, we were all Wolfpack fans. We was all this. We were 96. We were too sweet. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we were for life in it all the time. I did so many DX antics, particularly because Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler. So I was, yeah. If Shawn did it, I copied it incessantly. Teachers that I didn't respect hated me because they got my full DX treatment from
Oh
them.
man.
Oh, it was terrible. I was horrible, and that's the only time I was like a bad kid, was when teachers didn't have my respect, which weren't many. I was a pretty good kid in that aspect. But when I didn't like them, and then like oh, I was the biggest disrespectful degenerate that they could have had. I was worse than Shawn and Hunter towards Slaughter. The whole, especially with the shields and the windshield wipers with this. Oh, I was terrible. I pulled some stuff. Lord, I pulled, and this, and it's funny. And the thing is, like, you really, it's tough to get away with that as a black kid at a predominantly white school and pulling those antics. There was like 5 black kids in the school. But
Wow.
I had been through so many white schools and been through the racism in white schools. I was at a point as a teenager, I did not care. I was like, they're not going to arrest me. They're going to give me detention. They're not going to keep me from playing the basketball game because they need me. So I'm going to do what I want. I don't care. And I started having the DX attitude. I would leave class, walk the hallways, go to my favorite teacher's room, interrupt class, sit down at her desk. I did not care. It was a complete Degeneration X attitude.
I want to take a pause for a second and just acknowledge the chat right here. So we got Jeffrey saying, "What's up, fellas?" Following it up with "We all crotch chop," and then some laughter emojis right here. You guys in the chat room, if at any point you guys want to be part of the conversation and throw in your questions for Magic, please do so. We want to hear what you guys are thinking about the conversation. You got questions, please add it in. And also, friendly reminder: like and subscribe, please. Like and subscribe. So going back to we're talking about the '90s era, NWO, DX era, crotch shopping and stuff. And you're a kid in school, so I remember in that era for me, I got I wouldn't call it backlash, but it's just a lot of criticism about wrestling. Oh, you watch that, that's not real, right? That's fake. And everybody had their different way of reacting to that kind of criticism. So I want to ask you if you got that criticism at that time, and how would you respond to it?
Great question. I did get that criticism. I responded differently than a lot of people did because I was very unique as a kid coming up in the 80s, where I was an athlete, multi-sport athlete. I was also a massive geek, huge nerd. I watched, Star Trek. I watched anime before most people were watching it. I read for fun. Like, I had all these conflicting. Back then, you couldn't be a jock and be a geek. It wasn't a thing. You had to be either or. So I was used to people giving me flack about my interests. So when people saw that I was this big wrestling fan, I was at a point where I was like, I didn't care. But when they really wanted to, like, not let it go, I had already, by the time I was 16, I had already spent weeks at Wild Samoan. And the Anawai family went to my church, which is how I was able to even meet them. Oh, wow. So so it was really cool. Alpha, Sika, Alpha Junior, Lloyd, so many of them. I got to meet Batista when he was training there long before anybody knew who Batista was. Dave was a really cool guy. So, like, it was a very cool experience, going to church with them and going to camp. I couldn't afford to train. I didn't have $3,000 as a kid in high school, but I was able to go to camp. So I had learned a lot from them. So when people would give me crap about being a wrestling fan, I would say, well, how about I just show you how fake it is, and put you in basic holes. So I was like, I would use holes I didn't like, basic ones, like the sleeper. Like, I'll just put you in basic sleeper holes, and let's see how fake it is. And then after 10 seconds, and they're knocked out, and then they wake up 30 seconds later, I ask them how fake it was. Like, you just lost oxygen to your brain. Now, how fake did that feel?
So Jeffrey's saying, so he had the bloodline in his church. That's cool.
Yes, I did have the bloodline in church. Absolutely, it was very cool.
All right, and then we got the SSAWN network. All right, go Pack, go! Packers are up. Joe, Mitch and I are starting a show called Hardcore Balls. You're gonna have to tell me more about that because that could mean anything, man.
Right.
All right, all right. So, and like at that time, if there was I feel like if there was ever any mainstream coverage of pro wrestling, a lot of times it would be negative. Like early
Oh, it
90s, you
was.
had
It-
a lot of
it-
early 90s, you had the steroids trial.
the 90s was full of negativity for wrestling.
Yeah,
The 80s was such a hotbed of explosion. It didn't become mainstream, but it became something that people were no longer ashamed, if you were a fan, to talk about. Like, you
right.
knew people may make fun of you, but you was like, yeah, whatever. Like, people know about it, and that's
Yeah.
partially because of Vince McMahon, the WWF, and Hulk Hogan making it so popular by having Hulk in movies, Piper in movies. Um, you know, why am I forgetting? Oh my goodness, I can see his face. Terry Funk in movies,
Mm.
and you seeing all these wrestlers in mainstream media helped make it easier to consume. The 90s was just a decade of wrestling controversy, starting with the steroids trial.
Yep.
And then when the Attitude Era kicked off, it was all about content and the battle of, should anybody be watching this, especially children, because of the crotch chopping, because of the alcohol consumption, the cursing on television, the obscene
The,
gestures on television,
the way they would
and
use the female talent.
and then the female talent, all of a sudden, all these bra and panty matches, puppies, and we had that, Jackie Moore with that whole full booby exposure. So there was a whole lot going on in the 90s. And that was the WWF and WCW, mostly WWF. But that was mild compared to what I was watching, because I was living an hour from Philadelphia, and I was going down to the 2300 arena and going to the ECW arena, and
Oh, wow.
I was seeing wild stuff. ECW would run shows obviously there, as that was their main arena. They would also come up to Allentown and run shows at the agricultural hall called the Ag Hall in Allentown, at the Allentown Fairgrounds. And I was there often. And that is where you saw real vulgarity and real wild stuff and real offensive stuff. And that was, and especially mid 90s to late 90s, ECW, that full bingo hall renegade. Oh, we walked in with chairs, with weapons, so hoping that they would take them from us and use them in the matches. It
Wow.
was, yeah, I walked in with a steel chair. My one buddy brought a cheese grater that actually Ray Dudley actually took his cheese grater and used it in a match. Yeah, we were walking in with baseball bats. We were this stuff that you could not walk into any place now. Flat out weapons, stuff that you could just not walk into a place now and have. But at that time, for that crowd, oh, it was, oh Lord have mercy.
Was there
ECW was crazy.
was there a show of ECW that you attended that you find that gets played back in video packages?
Oh, that's tough because ECW Hardcore TV doesn't get played back in video packages much. And that's because it was so edited. It was edited so heavily. Heyman, I'll give Heyman his credit. He was masterful at highlighting the talent that he had. The only bad part about an ECW show is that they were slow. You didn't see a ton of matches. There was a lot of downtime between matches because there was so much editing going on. You only had one announcer when they were going to go back, going backstage to do a promo. So there was unfortunately some downtime when they did a hardcore TV taping. But when you got to see the action in the ring, it was phenomenal. I would say the one episode of hardcore TV that I did see that you would see a lot of play back in, oh man, there was it was one of the first or second matches between Yoshihiro Tajiri and Super Crazy.
Mm.
And that was, I ain't never seen nothing like that in my life. It was insane. And another one, it was a Van Dam and Sabu in a tag match. I think it was against. I think it was against the Baldies, who were very underrated jobber tag team in ECW at the time. They worked a fantastic match, and you see some clips from that match sometimes because Van Dam and Sabu were on their A game with everything that they were doing.
If you nowadays this generation, uh the new fans going into wrestling, pro wrestling, they don't have the luxury that we had to be able to watch ECW live, right? So you have to go back, watch content on YouTube, the library that WWE provides. But if you wanted to recommend a match for someone to watch from ECW that personified, that just gives you the full on definition of what ECW was, what match would you recommend someone to watch?
Wow, that is a question, my friend. Ooh, and is there one match I can pick out?
And yeah, Jeffrey says, "Rest in peace, Sabu. Rest in peace, man."
Yes. Um, there's a match. It's not highly touted, but I think it was an excellent match, and I think it really encompassed a lot of spirit of ECW, and that is Taz versus franchise Shane Douglas. But this is after Taz had beaten franchise for the championship. So this time, this is the rematch that was on Hardcore TV. Um, it was so fun seeing Shane as challenger after he had that stranglehold on the title for so long. He also had like a broken wrist at the time, so he was wrestling in the cast, and you see just phenomenal work between Taz and Shane. They worked so well together, but the intensity, the brutality, the fan involvement. They end up, of course, in so many matches, they end up going out into the crowd. Um, there's a moment where, um, Shane, pulls the Sandman and starts hitting himself in the head with the cast, getting himself psyched up. Opens up his head a little bit. But it was just a fantastic return match that really just is a good personification of ECW. That match is tough to find. But if you look for it, that's a great match. An easier one to find, and agreeing with Jeffrey here, Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow, Barely
Oh,
Legal, Jersey. I mean, what a fantastic match. People forget how great Bam Bam was, how mobile he was as a big man, the agility, the strength. Such a great match. I was a huge fan of the triple threat of especially Shane, Bam Bam, Chris Candido, of course the original iteration with Malenko and Benoit. Um, just a great match. Barely Legal there.
pro wrestling has a lot of great crowds, man. A lot of great cities that you can watch wrestling in. Philly, one of them. Of course, we know Chicago is always has a rowdy crowd. I feel like Northeast has some of the better crowds, but I'm biased. I'm out of Jersey, so of course I'm
Okay.
going to say the Northeast, right? But
I would not disagree with that. I actually I agree with that. Outside of the Northeast, Baltimore and Chicago to me are the ones that have similar passion to Northeast. Even though wrestling was big in the South, the way they were passionate about it was different. They seemed just to be more laid back, even amongst their more rabid fans. You did not see, and I think it's partially why ECW struggled to catch on with the southern markets, is that it was it was a Northeast thing. It was a tri-state area thing. Like most ECW fans were in New York, New Jersey, or PA. Like it was a tri-state area thing, and we were the only ones that could really see it. Is if you were close enough for the tri-state area to either go to the ECW arena, if they were running a show, near the Monster Factory, or if they were going up to the Hammerstein Ballroom in the city. But if you weren't from that area, unless you happen to be watching TV and you're at 2:00 in the morning where you didn't see ECW.
Yeah.
And you didn't have the opportunity to see it live because there's no more rabid fan base than ECW fans at a live show. I don't care how big the size is. There's no fan base that was so engrossed into whatever was going on than the ECW fans. From even where they passed out the styrofoam heads for Al Snow's entrance at the pay-per-view, and every single fan is shaking that head. You would never see that at a WWF or WCW show. You would never have 100% fan participation, even if it's only 5,000 of them. Every single one is participating. Even at One Night Stand, the second One Night Stand where Sandman and Dreamer had the tag match with the Dudley Boys. That entrance, that you will never see an entrance like that.
My God.
The entire crowd just belching, and most of them can't sing, singing Metallica, singing Enter Sandman. The fans grabbing the Singapore cane, hitting themselves with it, willingly getting beer sprayed on them. Rabid. There's no other fan base then and now that is as engrossed as ECW fans were.
It's crazy to believe. It's crazy to say out loud that for a lot of people, that match, Tommy Dreamer and Sandman versus the Dudleys, you ask people, hey, what's something that you remember most about that match? 9 times out of 10, you're probably gonna hear people say, "Oh, it's Sandman's entrance."
It's the entrance. And not that the match was bad, because the match wasn't bad, but the entrance was everything. I mean, because Sandman was ECW's icon. Like, this is the dude who's out of shape. He's wearing like freaking pants with stripes on them. He's wearing sneakers. He's not in wrestling boots. I remember for a long time he was wearing the Sean Kemp Kamikazes. He's wearing sneakers. He's got a black sleeve t-shirt on. He drinks 2 beers before he gets to the ring. He is smoking a cigarette. And he's holding this Singapore cane. He's not pretty. Man, all the stars at that time were relatively attractive guys. Shawn, Brett, Austin, Rock, Goldberg. Like, there was somebody that they were relatively reasonably attractive. Sandman is a overweight, gut sticking out, not muscle bound, in shape dude. He's just a regular dude. He's just a regular guy. And ECW fans loved him. Jeffrey, that's wrong. He was not more than just an entrance. That's not true. That means you haven't seen Sandman versus Raven, because that's so much more than an entrance.
Without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. I want to take us a little bit further. So we mentioned WCW, ECW, and of course WWF at the time. These are all 3 companies competing for their competing each other for their big slice of the pie, right? And finally, we have the end of WCW, the end of ECW, leaving us with just WWE at that point in
At that
time.
point, correct.
What did that mean for you as you're seeing these companies one by one coming to an end, getting absorbed by WWE, and now WWE is now the only one with TNA slowly building its foundation. But what did that mean for you at the time, being a pro wrestling fan, to see these other companies shutting down and WWE growing?
I I liked it and I didn't like it. I didn't mind WCW shutting down because it had turned into a hotbed of garbage. What Vince Russo was doing down there, the booking decisions, when as much as I love Nash, he didn't make very great booking decisions. Hogan's creative control ruined a lot of things. Um, it was a mess down there. And honestly, even during the heyday, the peak of WCW, during that 83-week run, I only turned WCW on pretty much for two reasons. That was for the NWO, and that was for the luchadors, because that was the only place you could see luchadors on national television. Vince rarely used them. If he did use them, you only saw them on like Superstars. You didn't see them on Raw. And Bischoff did a great job highlighting the Rey Mysterios, the Juventud Guerreros, the Ultimo Dragons, the Eddie Guerreros, the Billy Kidmans, um, you know, even the guys like Laparca, Psychosis, Silver King. Just a phenomenal luchador roster for WCW. But those are the only two reasons I turned WCW on. Because most of their guys I didn't care about. I didn't care about Diamond Dallas Page. Yeah, the finisher was cool, but I was like, I don't care about this guy. I didn't, and the guys that I kind of liked moved to WWF. So Johnny B. Bad was, he was weird, but when he was just Mark Merrow, and then, especially the Wild Man era, I liked him. I liked how he worked. He left. So some of the guys that I liked there ended up moving on, but most are guys I just didn't care about outside the NWO, and I only really liked the NWO because most of them were WWF guys. Like, it was Hall and Nash for me. I would see WCW on, I would see on TBS and stuff, and I would catch a Harlem Heat match. I was like, okay, cool. I like these guys, but most of the guys they had weren't doing it for me.
Yeah.
So WCW dying, I didn't care about. ECW dying, I did care about, because that we were left without an alternative to the WWF machine. I knew it was going to be happening. I knew because of my relationship with the Anoa'is and our proximity. I knew that Paul was feeding talent to Vince. I didn't know the full extent of that agreement and how much, and that he was pretty much working for Vince at that point, without officially, working for Vince. But I saw how much he was pushing ECW guys there, and no offense to these guys, but he originally didn't have plans for Mike Awesome to be champ, but he was pushing top talent to WWF, and so now you've got Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka is an amazing match, but it wasn't really like he wasn't planning on having Mike Awesome be a big player so soon. From what I heard and recollect, this is almost 30 years ago. But ECW folding left us without an alternative. It was cool to see some potential dream matches when the Invasion storyline started, but unfortunately, the big names that people wanted to see wisely stayed home and got paid.
Yep.
If Vince would have been so greedy, if he would have bought out contracts that were a little bit more favorable, instead of trying to do I think it was something ridiculous, like 25 cents on the dollar or something like that, he gave Booker T. If he'd have maybe did half for Hall, Nash, Hogan, Goldberg, Sting, we could have seen an actual good Invasion storyline, one that could have lasted a long time and really played out well. But without the big names, your invasion storyline just didn't work well.
Fell flat. Yeah.
Yeah, it fell flat. When nothing against him because he's one of the best technical wrestlers ever. But when Lance Storm kicks off your invasion by super kicking somebody, it's Lance Storm. He wasn't even that big of a player in ECW. I mean, he had his time at the top as part of the Impact players, him and Justin Credible, but that people wasn't checking WCW for Lance Storm. He was the cruiserweight champ. They weren't. Now, if DDP came out and Diamond cut somebody, and that kicked off the invasion, you've got something to work with there because he was a face and been multiple times champion, and he was somebody WWF fans would have recognized. But this square-headed, crew cut Canadian super kicking somebody that they're like, who was that guy? And the JR had to tell you, oh, that's Lance Storm. Like, I shouldn't have to. Just like when Scott showed up on WCW television, he didn't have to say who he was.
No,
he knew who he was.
Yep.
If Diamond Dallas Page had shown up and Diamond cut somebody out of nowhere, you knew who he was. That was the proper impact, but it just unfortunately fell flat. Jeff just asked, how do I feel about WWE spoiling the outcome from WWE? If you're referring to the Mick Foley, that's going to put butts in the seats, that was just stupid by Tony and Bischoff. Bischoff won't admit that it was a mistake, but it was a mistake that he was making weekly. He was telling results weekly. And as someone like myself, who I was switching, so for anyone that's young that does not understand how this works, cable television, you had wrestling on 2 channels on at the same time. So a lot of remote controls had this button that said last. So what I would do is turn on Raw, and then type in the number. So Raw was on USA. For my cable was channel 17. And then I would go type in my remote 33, which is what TNT was on. And when I would want to switch back, I hit last, and it goes back to the last channel. That's how I watched wrestling on Monday nights.
You're taking me back, man. You're taking me back
right.
With that last function on the remote
The last
control.
button, baby. I loved it.
Oh, my gosh.
There was no picture-in-picture at that time. So we had to use the last button.
And Scotty used to do the same thing every Monday night.
Exactly, Scott. You know, if you're a wrestling fan of a certain age, you know about the last button. And that was great for business. It was great because it had fans going back and forth. But once Tony would say these results at a time, I was like, oh, really? Well, let me, and I wasn't sure if it was true or not, but I was end up always going back to WWF programming. Yes, it was better if you had picture-in-picture on your TV in the late 90s. Yes, the TV I had in the basement that I could watch wrestling on was not that bougie. My parents had the nice TV upstairs. I didn't have a bougie TV to use. And no television was allowed in my room, so it was the basement for me. But that was, that really hurt WCW. And not just in that one instance. That's the main instance that people really saw, hey, that was really dumb. You just told millions of people to change channel. Just stupid. But Bischoff was doing it weekly, and it was a bad habit to do. If you do it once or twice, yeah, whatever, okay. Because you're constantly trying to rub it in Vince's face that you're beating them and that the decisions they're making aren't smart. But when they're catching up, and they've got, even though they weren't winning the ratings, all of their individual acts were hotter. They had 2 hot acts, NWO and Goldberg. But WWF was building multiple hot acts. You had Austin and Rock coming up, but fighting all over the IC title. You had Shawn at the top, feuding with Bret Hart, having a feud for the decades. The Montreal Screw Job, they were so hot on top. WCW only had, and that time was one thing, was just NWO because Goldberg hadn't even debuted yet. So they had one thing keeping people watching them. And WWF was just building more and more stars. WCW were not building new stars. They were resting upon the laurels of established stars. And when you say that not only that Mick Foley is going to win the title, but that Mick Foley, who used to work for your company, is going to become champ, who never would have gotten the championship in WCW. And who didn't love Cactus Jack? Everybody loved Cactus Jack.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Who didn't want to see him as a champ? Everybody turned the channel. Everybody. And Tony. I know Tony regrets saying it, but he didn't have a choice. His boss told him to say it. He said it, and that helped turn the tide.
You mentioned Mick Foley, and to this day, it's hard for me to believe because in hindsight, what we had with Mick Foley. You saw his performance, but he was a hire that JR wanted to do, and McMahon said, "I'm going to hire you because you're going to learn that your heart's going to be broken." Along those lines, that I'm not quoting him exactly, but that's pretty much the message that McMahon was giving to JR.
Yeah, Vince didn't believe in him.
He didn't believe
because
in him.
I mean, let's be honest. This is a guy with a screw loose, who's shaped like a pear, and he's supposed to be going up against some of the best conditioned and best looking athletes that WWF ever had. Taker, Shawn, Brett, Austin, Rock. Like it's a freaking Men's Health magazine shoot of how of how good these guys look.
Yeah.
Then you have this pear-shaped guy who likes to jump off of high things that is competing with them. Nobody would think in this land of guys with great looks that he would become a guy at top of the card or world champion.
Yeah. Mick Foley had a certain charm to him that really pulled viewers in. I became a believer of Mick Foley for me when he debuted as Mankind. And when he changed personas, it was so believable for me in the sense that this is not Mankind anymore. This is Dude Love. He's not pretending to be Dude Love. This is Dude Love. Now he's Cactus Jack. Oh, he's not any of these characters anymore. He was so good at switching characters that I no longer associated him with the prior characters. And then the brutality that he was able to endure to entertain fans.
That hell in a cell. Like I sometimes I try to pride myself on being objective, but sometimes I'm not. And that Hell in a Cell, I don't think it's a better match than the first Hell in a Cell, Shawn and Taker, but it was more brutal. What Shawn went through in that Hell in a Cell was horrific. I was like, I had never seen anybody go through that. And then the next year, Foley goes through that and plus a half more. And, Shawn taking that bump, just coming off the side of the cage.
Yes.
Going through that table. We had not seen anything like that. And then for Taker to throw Foley off, Foley from the top, was like, I was watching that pay-per-view. I thought Mick was dead. People say that all the time. I kid you not. I don't exaggerate. I thought he was dead. Because he laid there for a good 2 minutes and he didn't move. And then they started attending to him and they put him on the stretcher. And I was like, he's dead. And then he started moving on the stretcher and then he gets up and I'm like, one, how is he alive? Two, why is he going back in the ring? Because at this time, I'm smart enough to know, call the match. Send somebody out there to interfere or do something to, just like they did with Kane, like have Kane or who ended the match the year before, have somebody go out and jump Taker so that the match is over or something. But I was like, you can't keep going. Like, the man's dead. And then he went out there and then endured another 15 minutes of brutality. And then when he got chokeslammed through the cage, and that cage wasn't supposed to break, and then you see his body flop like a dead fish. You see the close up, and you see the tooth through his lip and under his nose. And at first, everyone was like, "Oh, that's spit." I thought it was spit, but then you look closer and you see that's a freaking tooth. Like, insanity. Like, there were bumps I took training in wrestling, and I took some risks, especially because I grew up in the backyard wrestling era. I took some stupid bumps. I ain't never taken nothing close to that. That was wild.
And then not only do we get 2 big bumps off the cell, through the cell, we also get thumbtacks. Thumbtacks. Now, I'll because you have a background with professional wrestling, I want to get your insight to the use of thumbtacks. Whether you've performed with thumbtacks, or can you give us insight in general as to how thumbtacks are used in matches?
Yes. So what's traditionally done, I shouldn't say traditionally, because to me it's still insanity. But what's done is you have thumbtacks. You generally take a back bump onto the tack. You're going to get pierced. You know it. But thumbtacks generally are not so invasive that they're going to cause major serious damage. So even though it's an extreme bump, it's considered relatively safe, which is why you've seen it done by Foley, you've seen it done by Orton, you've seen it done time and time again. Because for a hardcore spot, it's still relatively safe, because a thumbtack impaling you is going a quarter of a millimeter into your body. It's going to hurt to come out, but ultimately it's not that big of a deal. It still freaking hurts, and it's still crazy, because that hurts, man. Like there's, and now when you're performing, and it wasn't a bump I was willing to take, but I did take some crazy bumps. I took a bump like that in a backyard match onto a pile of wood, and on a cord of wood. And honestly, that was more dangerous than the tacks, because the wood could have seriously hurt me. Where in tacks are a lot more giving. It's a dangerous spot. I do believe he did crap his pants also that match, Scott. And when you take that type of impact, you probably will. But the back bump into, that's correct, Jeffrey. He was not supposed to go through the cell. The back bump onto the tacks is it's a tough spot. And what's crazy is it's a relatively mild spot for Foley, because for fans of Foley like myself, we had seen, like, I did a lot of tape trading in the 90s. So I had seen the Japanese death match already. And I was like, and even though I had seen that, and that match overall is more brutal, the falling through the cake was something I had not seen him do. And then take that thumbtack, to take the tack bump after you've been thrown freaking 15 feet in the air and then through the cage, to do that on top of it. It's one thing if that was the first bump you took, the first big bump you took. Man, you were dead twice already, and then you take that bump on top of it. It's a whole nother mindset that even myself, working a couple hardcore matches, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have done it. I'm not that tough. I'll tell you, I'm not cut from that cloth. I'm not.
We are. Let's see. Hell in a Cell began in 1997, so we're 28
Correct.
years with. We're at 28 years worth of Hell in a Cell matches. Is there, outside of Foley and Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, Is there a particular one that sticks out for you that you hold in high regard?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question because a lot of Hell in a Cell matches after those two really failed to hold the same weight. You know, um, the Hell in a Cell between the Usos and the New Day was surprisingly fantastic.
Oh, yes.
Like
Yep.
I didn't expect the tag team match to be that good, but they did an amazing job in that match. And I don't think this tag match is really gonna. It's the tag match. Hell in a Cell's a one-on-one thing, but that match was stupendous. That one is when I say Hell in a Cell tag match. Usos New Day, amazing, amazing match.
Oh, absolutely, man. Those teams had so much great chemistry
Yes,
with one another, and and they use a lot of great psychology with that match to really get you invested into it. You didn't need to climb on top of the cage to get to get, for lack of a better word, butts in the seats.
right.
Eh, like they used what they had at their disposal, and it worked. That's definitely up there for me for Hell in a Cell matches. I'll
Oh yeah,
also
it's my favorite Usos match because
oh
for me, it's when they established because up until that point, in my opinion, people really kind of treated them more, looked at them as just like C level workers. They didn't take them as seriously. The their status as a team didn't reach that A tier. That match to me solidified like, look, these guys are going for greatest WWE/WWF tag team history level here. Like these guys, they're for real. They're not just good because they're Rikishi's kids, or they're not just getting a shot because they're Rikishi's kids. These guys can flat out go.
and we got Scott here chiming in from a couple years ago. The first female Hell in a Cell match was pretty damn good also.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Absolutely.
And Jeffrey agrees with you. Usos and New Day is up there. Uso Penitentiary era.
Yes.
That
It's one thing. Hell in a Cell it's a brutal match, and it's to me it's the safe. It's brutal, but it's safe enough that you can continue to keep doing it. Where we're in the era now, and even in the '90s, where because I remember watching the to me it makes my stomach turn. But watching Funk and Sabu in the barbed wire match, um, as an ECW fan, I was like, wow, this is too much. This is like freaking Roman gladiator level stuff. Like I was like, okay, these still are people, man. Like
yeah.
this is crazy. And that's like, and so taking that to today, um, I struggle watching some of GCW stuff because they keep trying to push this envelope and go farther than ECW did. And I'm like, one of y'all are gonna die, and I really don't want to be watching when that happens.
Yeah, we don't want to see that happen, especially broadcasting everywhere now. Like
Yeah.
some of the stuff that I see on AEW rivals the brutality that we saw back in the day. Like I have this image imprinted of my mind in my mind of John Moxley with
Yes.
the spike bat hanging
Yes.
off of his back.
The moment you said AEW and brutality, my mind immediately went to Mox because that's the reason why he's working there. Because Vince won't let him kill himself. Like he Mox has I don't know if it's a pain fetish. I don't know what it is that it's in Mox's head that he wants to bleed so often, but that spike in his back, I was like, why, man, why?
Yeah.
Like, but however, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a hilarious edit of that picture where someone put Plank from Ed, Ed, and Eddie as the back.
What?
Yes, it's hilarious. The box is going like this, and it's plates on his back. Oh, I think I might. I think I saved that to my phone. If I have it, I'll send it to you. It is hilarious. But no, when I saw that, that sickened me. And I can take a lot because I've seen a lot. As an old ECW fan, I've seen some insane stuff. I've seen enough blood in a wrestling ring to last me a lifetime. That was definitely something that, a Terry Funk Sabu level of insanity. That's too much. I'm surprised they haven't tried to duplicate the freaking scaffold match and have another crazy person fall 20 feet down into the ring.
Scott's chiming in. The Spike moment is one of the highest AEW YouTube videos over the past several months.
I don't doubt it.
And yeah, man, like the scaffolding moments, that scaffolding falling moment. You also have Shane McMahon falling off of the cell and hitting the announcer's desk. Another Shane moment.
Shane and freaking Steve Blackman.
Steve Blackman, yes, that's what I was about to talk about. Yeah,
I thought Shane died there. The way he took that bump, because I thought he was dead. I knew there was a crash pad under him. It didn't matter. Like the way he fell like a sack of potatoes, man. And I've only been scared for Shane twice. That fall and the bump off the cage with Taker. And partially because Shane was freaking 50 years old when he took that bump. But that first, I lie. The other time was that match against Angle.
King of the Ring.
The King of the Ring match where Angle kept freaking suplexing him to death. And the way Shane landed on his neck when the glass wouldn't break. Oh, Lord. I was like, neither one of these men are going to walk again after this. That was such a brutal match.
What was your favorite tag team during the Attitude Era?
Oh, that's a good question. It's tough because between RVD and Sabu, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys, those were the ones that I really loved to watch. If I had to pick one team, I would probably say the Hardy Boys edged out because RVD and Sabu didn't last more than a year and a half as part of that stable with Bill Alfonso. So the Dudleys obviously had their ECW to WWF history. I liked the Hardys. There was something about them that resonated with me. Their build, being smaller. Again, I always gravitated to smaller athletic guys, and that they took risks. I liked high flyers. I liked Shawn. The Rockers were my favorite team in 80s into the 90s. So they reminded me of the Rockers in that high flying way, and they could work. They had good ring psychology. They obviously had fantastic chemistry. And those are all things that I loved. That permeated from team sports. I'm a big tag team wrestling fan. Just like one thing that's always pissed me off about Vince McMahon was his disdain for tag team wrestling. When so many of my favorite stars were tag guys. And then on the WCW side, of course, I love the Outsiders. I loved Hall and Nash as the Outsiders. So I'm a big tag team guy. I love to me just gives more opportunities to showcase great talent. So, but yeah, I would have to say if I had to pick one team, the Hardys through the entire duration of the Attitude Era were my favorite.
I have to agree with Jeffrey's chime in right there. Team Extreme, the Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, and I'll add Edge and Christian, man. Like those guys made the tag team division.
Well, that tag team ladder match was out of this world.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Amazing.
And then each one had an extension of their team. You had for example, Lita for the Hardy Boys, Spike Dudley for the Dudleys, Rhino for Edge and Christian, and
Right.
and what they and what they uh their participation in their match, what they contributed to is the word I was looking for. Uh, Lita's chair shot, Spike Dudley's Spike Dudley's bump, and Rhino. What was it? I think that must have been a WrestleMania match, I believe.
It wasn't TLC. I don't think it was Mania though. I think it was something in between there. Might have been the Royal Rumble one.
Maybe if you guys know in the chat, please chime in with that. Because I want to say WrestleMania, but I could be wrong. And Stacy Keibler was also a good contribution for the Dudleys.
Oh man, I love me some Stacy Keibler, man. Legs for days. Oh God,
Yeah,
legs for days, exactly. Legs for days. Oh,
yeah, man, yeah.
I remember when she debuted as Miss Hancock in WCW. She was something. She was something else.
Yeah, she was. She was. She was. Um, your big champions at during that time in the Attitude Era, you had The Rock and Stone Cold. Were you more Rock or were you more Stone Cold?
So since this show was called Hot Take, I got a hot take for you.
Here we go.
I can't stand Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That is a hot take.
Can't stand him. And this is even keeping the personal stuff aside. The Deborah, the woman beating, all that stuff. This is just character. So as a black dude from Detroit who ended up having to go to a lot of predominantly white schools, the person type of people that I did not like most in life, the people who were the worst to me in life, were redneck, beer drinking white dudes who did nothing but throw up their middle finger, go to bonfires and drink beer. He was the epitome of the people I could not stand the most in life.
Wow.
So his gimmick, and also, so that's part of it. But also, I didn't understand why he got over as a babyface, because the Stone Cold gimmick was a heel gimmick. I didn't understand why fans started to cheer him. Personally, here's another part two to this hot take. I preferred, like, if I rank Steve Austin, my preferred Steve Austin was the Ringmaster, because I love the Ringmaster, but again, I love technical wrestling. I love people who can dominate somebody in the ring. Prior to that neck injury, and a lot of people don't realize this because he didn't blow up until after the neck injury and he was truly stone cold. Steve Austin was a phenomenal technical wrestler. He could go with anybody in the ring. And it's a darn shame that his neck got broken in that match with Owen. Because his career probably would have been a lot longer and a lot better had that not happened. But as the ringmaster, I loved the arrogance. I loved the boost he got from DiBiase. And I loved the dominance that he displayed in the ring technically. I was never a fan of the brawlers. So I loved that ringmaster version. And even though I didn't watch a ton of WCW, I liked the Hollywood Blonde version of Austin. Again, because it was technical, but he also had an attitude and a swag about him in the Hollywood Blondes era. Oh, actually, not even the Hollywood Blondes era. His Dangerous Alliance era.
Yeah,
is my preferred one. That Dangerous Alliance Steve Austin was really great. Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't like it all.
You mentioned and I want to ask this because we're talking about Stone Cold, but you mentioned earlier that some of your new generation favorites were Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold. So
Bret
Who
Hart,
would you,
Shawn Michaels, and Bret Hart.
Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, who would you say Bret Hart? And I'm going to pivot this to Bret Hart, and I'll also add Stone Cold to it. Who would you say Bret Hart had better in-ring chemistry with, Shawn Michaels or Stone Cold? And I'll also chime in the same question for Stone Cold and Shawn, or Stone Cold and Bret.
That's a really great question. In ring chemistry, I would say the chemistry was better between Hart and Austin. That's only because Hart liked Austin more. I don't think they worked together better than Bret and Shawn worked together. Because despite the animosity they had, every match they had was gold. It was amazing. They could have a 15-minute match on Raw, and it was like, you don't need to watch anything else. This is what you need to watch. That Iron Man match was 60 plus minutes of phenomenal work. Um, it, they just didn't like each other, and that to me that highlights the greatness of both guys, in that they didn't have great chemistry, but they worked so well together. Where Austin and Hart had better chemistry, things went. You could tell their communication was better and smoother. But outside of that, the match where Austin doesn't tap out and he's bleeding, whatever. Outside that match, that's the only really great match that they had. Where almost every match that Hart and Michaels got in the ring together in was a clinic. So it's tough. But that's their greatness, and that does greatness to Shawn, because Shawn, like, I'll tie this into why I believe Shawn is the GOAT. And mainly it's because if you talk about the greats in wrestling that wrestled within the era that Shawn Michaels wrestled in, you talk about Austin, you talk about Hart, you talk about Hunter, you talk about Flair, you talk about Taker, so many great wrestlers that, had Kurt Angle, just guys that had matches with Shawn Michaels. When you talk about those guys in that upper echelon, and you talk about their best matches, like their top 5, top 10 best matches. Don't say 10, because wrestling's a lot. Top 10 matches. Within those top 10 matches, 1 or 2 of them are Shawn Michaels matches. Whether it's Flair, whether it's Austin, whether it's you name the guy. If he had a Shawn Michaels match, 1 or 2 of his top 10 matches are with Shawn Michaels. It's just because of how amazing he is in the ring, the stories that he can tell, that he tells in the ring. It's on a level that no one else has. And whether the guys liked each other, like him and Triple H, whether they loathe each other, like him and Bret Hart, whether they were ambivalent, like him and Austin, whether they were mentor and mentee, like him and Flair, whether they were just 2 guys who had to have a match, like him and Kurt Angle, or they were, again, kind of mentor mentee reversed in him and Jericho. It didn't matter. The match was a flat out banger.
I love the way you're speaking to the matches, the chemistry. I can almost not just hear but feel the passion and the emotion that's coming along with it. And with pro wrestling, there's so many moments that make you feel, whether it be joy, uh, laughter, heartbreak, sadness. So I want to ask you: is there a moment that comes to mind where pro wrestling just made you feel so much, from a story angle, from a character perspective, from a finish, whether it be inside and out of the ring? What's a moment in professional wrestling just that really just cut you deep and made you feel so much?
The first one was the Iron Man match, where Shawn finally wins the championship. And WWE, for all their flaws, has always been a fantastic storytelling company for the people that they can tell good stories for. They've generally done an amazing job telling stories with Shawn Michaels. that the boyhood dream made kids and myself feel that you can accomplish your dreams. Because outside of him and Brett, all your champions were these massive big guys. These were two guys who, even though they lied about their height and said they were 6'2" or whatever, when everybody knows they're like 5'10", but you could believe that you could be the world champion um, from watching him and Brett. So that was the first time. The second time was really unexpected, and that was Michaels and Flair. The emotion between Michaels and Flair when he delivers that last super, like, it made me cry. And I don't even like Flair, but the you could see the emotion was real between the two of them because of the respect that they have for each other in their career. You ask Flair to this day, he'll tell you Shawn's the greatest in-ring performer ever. And that, and that's how Flair's career should have ended. Was just that. You can't beat that moment. You have two guys who are top 5 in-ring workers, and you have that finish. You have the mutual respect there. You have Shawn super kick him, cover him, get the 1, 2, 3, grab Flair's forehead and kiss it. I cried. And I can't stand Flair, but I cried. That was how powerful that moment was.
That's beautiful, man. I love it. I love it. I if there's one moment that I can think of where I saw a finish to a match and I'm just sitting there taking it all in, and I'm seeing these performers getting up, and I just have such an appreciation for the work, the craft that they just did in front of everybody. That moment for me is after the end of an era Hell in a Cell match between Triple H and Undertaker with Shawn Michaels as the guest referee. And look at the pattern. Shawn Michaels, another moment that he's a part of, right? But when those three are back are back at the top of the stage under the Tron, they're all holding each other up and they're just looking back at the crowd, and that crowd is just thanking them with cheers with everything they just saw in that
So
match.
appreciative. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic seminal moment, because it's one of those moments where you break kayfabe for the specialness of the moment, and that was fantastic. I'll give you one moment. It's the most recent emotional moment that I had, and it's one that doesn't involve Shawn, so that means it's a rarity. Um, but Kofi Mania, Kofi Kingston winning the world title at WrestleMania, um, that was huge. For me as a fan of Kofi's, I never thought they would put the title on him. For all the years I've watched him in the in the company, and let's be real about it. The WWF/WWE has never been big on putting the world title on black wrestlers. They don't write they don't write good stories for most black wrestlers. The writers they have on staff struggle to write good stories involving black wrestlers. That's been a thing for them for their entire existence. Um, Kofi catching fire, replacing Mustafa Ali, and everybody just rallying around him. And that was the part that was so special was this wasn't a decision Vince and Bruce Pritchard and the writing staff made. Creative didn't make this. The fans called for it, and then they had no choice but to run with it. And the moment was so surreal. It meant so much to me as a wrestling fan, as a black wrestling fan, and to watch Xavier pick up the belt, take over to Kofi, the emotion on his face, the joy on Biggie's face. And then you see the clips of, MVP and Shad Gaspard, rest in peace, Shad,
Rest in peace. Yeah.
watching at the bar, seeing Kofi get that almost almost impossible achievement to have, especially at that time. People forget. Until that time, the only black world champions you had before that were Rock and Booker T. That was it.
That was it.
That was it. And Booker T was never WWE champion, so a lot of people didn't even count that. But world champion, you had two guys in all the history of WWE, and then Kofi comes along and gets the title. So like that was such a special moment. I'm still mad he didn't get his rematch. The way they dropped the title to him with Brock was some bull crap. And unfortunately, every black champion has lost their title to Brock Lesnar. So it's like, that's some. I just need them all to jump Brock. That would be nice. I just want to see every black champion come out and just jump him. It's everyone. They all dropped their title to him, but that was such just an amazing moment. And well-deserved, fan-driven, special time. Very emotional.
In addition to moments, emotional times in pro wrestling is when we have those awful instances where we lose someone too soon.
Oh.
And I want to ask you, what pro wrestler passing
Raw
affected you the most?
Raw is Owen. I cried like a baby the night after Owen passed. He was the heart that I liked the most. And I was really starting to have fun because, like, even though he wrestled so well during the Blackheart era, I didn't have a whole lot of fun with Owen during that time. But when he and Jeff Jarrett were tag teaming, he brought back out the Blue Blazer gimmick, and he's just having so much fun doing this thing with him and Jeff Jarrett and bringing back the Blue Blazer, which was just it was so enjoyable. And then having Jeff dressed as a Blue Blazer, having Mark Henry come out as a Blue Blazer, it was so funny. For him to, and I was watching that pay-per-view as well when that happened. And I was like everyone watching, I was just in shock. And it really didn't hit me until the next night when they did Raw is Owen, and they took the time to talk to everyone. And the interview that stuck out to me the most, I'm probably going to start crying thinking about it, is I want to say Michael. It was JR or Michael Cole. I think it was JR. He's sitting with China and Triple H. Triple H can't talk. He couldn't talk. He was so overwhelmed. He's sitting there crying. He's trying to hold it in. And Joni's talking for him. And my heart broke. Watching wave after wave of grief and disbelief, shock, just over and over on his face. And for some people, it's Eddie's passing. Chad was another tragic moment recently, but Owen's passing was jarring. It was jarring.
Yeah. I agree, Owen. Many times when I've asked this question, Eddie Guerrero comes to mind for so many. Shad, as a father, I'm a father of two. Shad's passing and the circumstances of that passing cut deepest for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's a hero in so many hearts for saving his son the way that he did. Save my son and then and then save me.
Yes. Well, as a father of five, that's goes without question. It's like Will Smith in iRobot. It's like, save the girl, save the kid.
Yeah.
Leave me, save the child. if you want to come back for me, come back, but save the kid like that. Yeah, that wouldn't hurt a lot for me too. But I got it. That's exactly what I would have done in his situation.
We haven't done a lot of talking about female talent, and I want to get your perspective on female talent from 25 years ago to where we are now. There's a lot that has changed,
Oh
but
wow, yeah.
I want you to share with me, top of mind, the things that the changes that you noticed the most, right, for the female talent back then versus right now.
Um, so right now, I mean, this is if you're a woman and you want to wrestle, there is no better time to do it than now. Because there's never been a time in pro wrestling where women's wrestling has been so respected and taken seriously as it is right now. I love this era for women's wrestling. There are so many women who I am just a massive fan of, from Bianca Belair, Naomi, Bailey, um, Asuka, Kairi Sane, Io Shirai. I like Rhea Ripley a lot. Um, there's just so many. Um, I have a long list of women that I really enjoy. I have a small list of ones I can't stand. Looking at Alexa Bliss, but
That's another hot take right there, because she has a lot. She has a big fan base, man.
she has a massive fan base. I don't get why, but I mean, well, I don't get it. But also a lot of Vince's preferred girls. For a lot, I look at them like I don't get it. Or I don't see them as that special. Trish Stratus, people love her. Overrated. Like, people talk about, oh, she's so great, and I look, I say, look, I don't know if you were around when Trish Stratus started wrestling, but she was no, she wasn't even horrible. She was abysmal. She was beyond bottom of the barrel. Now what I will not do is disrespect Trish, because even though she was terrible, she took it seriously. She worked hard and she improved. Unfortunately, in my opinion, she improved from the depths of hell to bad, but at least she improved and she took it seriously, which I will never take away from her, and I greatly respect it. She just wasn't a good wrestler. Um, the era as a child for me, it was rough because, again, I did a lot of tape trading, so I would watch a lot of All Japan and New Japan. So I was watching Manami Toyota, and I was watching Bull Nakano, and seeing women really get taken seriously over there and do well. And then here in the States, I'm watching, outside of the 80s with Wendy Richter, and some women kind of be taken seriously. Young Alundra Blaze, it just wasn't taken seriously. But I always enjoyed women workers. Wendy Richter, as I mentioned, I loved watching Alundra Blaze. Her match with Big Bertha Faye at SummerSlam was a really fun match. Um, and I thought women just didn't get enough proper respect from the company. Um, we had some resurgence of women who could actually wrestle, with Jackie Moore, and Ivory, and Molly Holly, Molly Holly's my favorite woman wrestler. Um, that I love Molly. Nora Greenwald, such a fantastic person, amazing in the ring, work on the ground, uh, work in the air, just had everything. Um, and she didn't compromise her own morality, to be champion. She kept, she would lead the modesty, and she kept it that way. Where some of the other women of her era, got naked and got titles put on them, like Miss Kitty, who couldn't work
Yep.
her way out of a paper bag. Um, so we had, and nothing against Stacey Carter, nothing personal. It's just that's what it is. So we had an era where people who couldn't work were elevated, and people who were excellent workers, did not get the respect that they deserved. And I'm glad to see where it is now. I wish Jazz would have been 20 years younger because Jazz would have been a major star. No, she's not the most drop dead gorgeous woman in the world, but I haven't seen many women that could outwork her, and that was a woman who could work with men. I saw her work in ECW with men. Her and Jason at the pay per view, fantastic match. I saw her take bumps from Just Incredible and take freaking scores from Rhino. Like I saw that woman take so much punishment and look great doing it. Um, People don't understand how good Jackie Moore was as a wrestler. You don't understand how good Ivory was as a wrestler. Um, because they weren't allowed to showcase their true talent in the bra and panties puppies era. Because Deborah McMichael was a valet who got more pub, and Sable was a worse valet who got more pub just because she was willing to take her clothes off. I'm glad that this era does not have to be reduced to popularity by taking your clothes off. These women are allowed to have feminine and great looking gear without having to degrade themselves, and they can actually wrestle and perform and tell great stories, which was not happening in the Attitude Era in the early days of the Ruthless Aggression era.
That and among many other reasons are just reasons that as successful as pro wrestling was in that era, it wasn't taken seriously. It wasn't taken seriously mainstream wise. It just wasn't. But you compare it to now. We're in an era now where there's so much pro wrestling content getting produced.
Mm-hmm.
WWE is on Netflix.
Yes, it
WWE
is.
WWE is just beginning their relationship with ESPN, which is another milestone win for them. And
Oh man, you want? I might have to ask you to come on my show and talk about that in depth because I don't know how much of a win this is. I am. Man, there's so many layers.
so
Um,
many.
because and just to kind of be short with it, I understand where TKO is coming from in making the deal. It's a ton of exposure. It is a ton of money. Business wise, I get it. However, wrestling is unique. Wrestling can be very risque. ESPN is a Disney company, and you're going to potentially cause problems with depending upon how you are going to display that type of content. Um, I don't know how that well that's going to mesh. Um, WWE on Netflix has let a lot of words fly that you could not say on the USA Network.
Mm-hmm.
There's been an increased level. It's not the Attitude Era level, but it's not also the PG era anymore either. Um, the mouse has a lot of clout. And if the mouse has something to say about it, it's going to be the mouse's way or the highway. So
Definitely.
I'm not sure how that relationship ultimately is going to work. I have some trepidation about that because that may be a hindrance or a help. It could go either way, honestly. But the way it's trended, the PG era was not the greatest for business. And if the mouse wants them to lean towards a cleaner image, that may not make both sides the money that they wanted to make. That could
Mm-hmm.
potentially be a problem. So I don't know about that deal. It's a lot of freaking money. It's an amazing deal. I I was shocked they made it.
Yeah.
Especially with so many people on ESPN talking about how wrestling is fake. I was surprised to see that, but man, it's murky.
It's new waters for WWE to be swimming in, but with the structure, with the TKO machine behind them, well, they own them. So it's TKO's way or the highway at this point.
Right.
But it's new waters to be treading in, and and it is new eyes, new fans coming in. And earlier we talked about how how much criticism there was for fans back in the 90s era for wrestling fans, but now with ESPN broadcasting their PLEs, there's more legitimacy to pro wrestling, i.e. WWE. What do you think? Maybe you might have some
Maybe.
insight because you have your kids are older than mine, but um, what what do you think conversations in schools, for example, are like now for kids who are into pro wrestling? Do you think those criticisms still exist to this day, or do you think that those are far and few between?
It's a good question. Well, like you said,
And
this
before
this
you
is
get to that,
yeah.
Matt, we got Mitch coming in saying hi. Nice to see you, Matt.
Nice to see you, Mitch. Like your logo.
All right, so Matt, so
So
Mitch and Jeffrey chiming in right here. You know, they're having their own conversation in the chat, guys. Again, as always, throw in some questions for Matt, aka Magic. But you were about to say, go ahead.
yeah, so you're right. This is not exactly new water, because they did broadcast on ESPN way back in the day, but that was before the Montreal. That was before the curtain call and the exposure of kayfabe. Back when kayfabe was still alive, and some people thought wrestling was legitimate. There was broadcast on ESPN when ESPN was still a growing company. ESPN and WWE have changed greatly since those days, where WWE and AWA were broadcast on ESPN. But so this isn't completely unfamiliar waters, but it's different now that kayfabe is a thing, and nobody is under the impression that pro wrestling is a legitimate sport. They realize it's entertainment. They realize it is predetermined. Um, to me, it really depends upon marketing. How are you going to market this product? How are you going? And also, if you're banking on these PLEs being you know, to be really big, how are you going to cross brand and build for the PLEs? Um, you have to build enough groundswell for your non wrestling fans that watch ESPN to fix their eyes towards wrestling, because you are essentially asking them to pull away from something else that they would have been watching on, and you can't even say Sundays anymore, but that Saturday, Sunday, whatever day the PLE is going to be on. You have to say, all right, you need to pull your eyes away from either this particular show, this particular sporting event as well. Because now that we've got in this era, you've got football Thursday, you've got football sometimes Friday, you've got Saturday football with college, and you've got Sunday football and Monday night football. So you've got to, and then you've got obviously in the spring you've got basketball, and you're gonna ask these people to pull their eyes away from something that may be broadcasting on ESPN. What is ESPN going to be sacrificing to pull those eyes away from one subject, because you're trying to draw them into that PLE? Um, I think it could be very helpful for the little downtime that you have. So, like right now, we're just at the beginning of the NFL season, and we're ramping up towards baseball playoffs. But this time is a pretty quiet time in the sports world, because baseball has not picked back up. And before the NFL starts, it's pretty quiet after the NBA Finals. NBA Finals ends, and baseball is the only major sport going. It's pretty quiet. So you can probably pull a lot of those eyeballs in if you market well, particularly if you're able to find ways to integrate WWE wrestlers into your other sports programming. So if they're making appearances at WNBA games or baseball games, they're throwing out more first pitches and, doing any type of cross promotion to get eyes onto WWE and putting it out there that, hey, the SummerSlam is going to be on ESPN this year. Part of your Disney, Hulu, ESPN, Disney Plus bundle. Scott mentioned the Disney bundle exactly. To my knowledge, Scott, you will be able to, because they're going to be adding more content to ESPN Plus. Don't quote me on that yet. I have to do some reading on it. But from my understanding, yes, you will be able to see PLEs with the Disney Plus bundle. Curious to see how WrestlePalooza is going to look like on ESPN. I agree as well, Jeffrey. Jeffrey makes a great point. ESPN, how they broadcast things, and how WWE broadcast things, two different things. There is no hard cam in the NBA or the NFL and stuff. Are they going to stay with the wrestling format? Is there going to be arguments on how this is going to be broadcast? Because to me, and Vince came up with a great formula for how they show WWE style pro wrestling. That hard cam is important. I wouldn't want them to deviate from that personally. There may be some butting heads there. So you've got to cross promote it. You've got to get these wrestlers, and also that means you're going to have more athletes showing up at Raw and SmackDown in various sports cities to help cross promote that PLEs are going to be on ESPN. You can't just save that for the big pay-per-views and big PLEs anymore. You're going to have to start doing that more often. You're going to have to start getting. Obviously, you don't have to get in the ring, but have them be in the back. Where when someone's cutting a promo and they're hanging with them, and they talk a little chunk here and there too between whatever heel and baby face are going at it. You're going to have to do some work, because McAfee probably will be over that. But McAfee has a particular audience. You need more than McAfee. You're going to need Stephen A. Smith, who's a huge wrestling fan, who cuts a fantastic promo. If he retires from First Take, Stephen A. Smith needs to be a freaking manager. That man can cut a promo like nobody else, man.
Yes.
Every year when he cuts those promos on the Cowboy fans, he cuts a great promo, man. Like, if MVP wants to retire or just have, and obviously AEW's involved, but if MVP, the Hurt Business needs to have Stephen A. Smith just come out and cut a promo on behalf of the Hurt Business, because he would fit right in. Stephen A. Smith can cut a promo. But you would need a guy like that is involved in wrestling, who's passionate about wrestling, advocating for it. You're going to have wrestlers appear on whenever ESPN decides to start doing inside the NBA. You're going to need Shaq involved, Charles Barkley, guys who are large in life, guys who have been involved in wrestling, who've got big personalities. Because the bigger you make it, the more eyeballs you're going to be able to get to draw into the PLEs, and hopefully you can build enough for that they can stay and actually get engrossed in the PLE and tell really great stories. If it's me, if I'm Hunter, you're probably not going to hear this, but if you do, just give me a little credit and maybe a bonus check. But but what I would do is not only have them on the show, but I would have segments that are building into the story, that are, especially early on, that build into the PLEs. So if we're building, let's say John Cena versus let's say Truth. He and Truth start going at it. Our Truth shows up. John Cena is on First Take with and they're talking like he's just a guest, like he's not like he's fully in character, like he's a guest and he's commentating on football or whatever. Truth shows up, cuts a promo. They have a small altercation. Stephen A's talking, and you have 2 minutes of wrestling that happens during First Take. That's going to go viral that's going to be a short on YouTube. That's going to be on Facebook. It's going to be short on X. It's going to cycle around. And then on we probably do it on other shows but not Sports Center, but in our Inside the NBA or NBA Tonight or NFL, countdown. All of a sudden, McAfee is talking, and anyone that McAfee has wrestled in the past shows up, and they have a little rest, and they have 2 minutes where they cut promos on College Day. Guys, tons of wrestlers played football. Roman shows up for Georgia Tech versus, Georgia, and Roman's there, and or The Rock shows up for Miami, Florida State promo. You have your guys that played college football that have that history. You go there, you have 2-minute segments within the show, and that will get the wrestlers more the fans that are fans of wrestlers more familiar with them. It gives them a bit of the story where you can see that story continue to build towards that PLE.
Definitely. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And because a lot of these people aren't going to be turning on Raw, they're not going to be turning on SmackDown, and they're not going to be turning on NXT. So you give them these little bits, and hopefully they watch the PLE. Hopefully that PLE then gets them to start turning on Raw, turning on SmackDown, and turning on NXT. That's how I would build it if it's my company. But I don't have a wrestling promotion because that costs a lot of money.
Great points indeed. I agree with Jeffrey. Matt, we are approaching the 2-hour mark. So I have rapid fire questions for you, and then we're going to close out with 2 more questions. Are you ready?
Sure. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Who is the GOAT?
Shawn Michael Hickenbottom, better known as HBK. Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, the showstopper. It's Shawn Michaels. And the reason, like I said earlier, every top guys got 2 or more Shawn Michaels matches in their top 10 match list. Shawn is the best in-ring worker, and he can cut a promo. He can draw emotion. He can be a great heel. He can be a great baby face. And he essentially had 2 careers, pre-back injury, post-back injury. And he essentially had 2 Hall of Fame careers. He's the original Grand Slam champion. He can work with anybody, massive, small. It doesn't matter. And it's a shame that we were robbed of Rock HBK and Eddie Guerrero HBK. Those are the 2 matches we didn't get that we were robbed of. But everybody that steps in the ring with Shawn, he's a GOAT. He hadn't wrestled in how long? They had that terrible tag match with DX versus the Brothers of Destruction. He hadn't wrestled in forever. Everybody else was part-time, and he was still the best person in the match. And he hadn't wrestled in years.
We're going to have to make a note to send to WWE that it's not John Cena, it's HBK.
I mean, I'm not a Cena fan, but no disrespect to Cena, not John Cena.
Fair.
I respect John. I have put John in the. I do a pyramid, so to me he's on the level right above the top. But that encompasses all wrestling and not just WWE. WWF, he's up there, but yeah, it's Shawn Michaels. I mean, can you name? I mean, you can't name that many great John Cena matches. They're just not that many. And nothing personal against John. He's not half the worker that Shawn is. He's more like Hogan. He's more gimmick than in ring ability. Shawn has it all. He did it all.
Yep.
He made you hate him. He made you love him. He made you cry. He made you laugh. He inspired you to be rebellious. He inspired you to seek God. Like, ain't nobody else doing that. So Shawn Michaels.
Love that answer. Best heel turn of all time.
Oh man, I'm so tempted to say Shawn Michaels super kicking Mario Jannetty. It's an iconic one, but the greatest heel turn of all time, as much as I loathe the man personally, is Terry Boyle, Hulk Hogan, in the NWO. That is the biggest, most impactful heel turn. It changed the business. It lit WCW on fire. There's no bigger heel turn than Bash of the Beach '96.
And they followed it up very well, man. in today's day and age, you might hear Cena's heel turn earlier this year was would rival Hulk Hogan's, but the follow to that heel turn just didn't do it. I'm not going to blame John Cena because the crowd does not want to boo Cena. That's
Well,
the problem right there.
the problem is we all saw it coming. They turned heel Cena unexpectedly. And that's what was so big about Hogan. Even though Hogan was stale, no one saw Hulk Hogan turning heel because even though he is as a wrestler, he was stale. He was still in movies. He had done Three Ninjas movie. He
Yeah.
had Suburban Command. He was still big in Hollywood. He had the Thunder in Paradise TV show. Like he wasn't failing in popularity. He was just stale as a character. So nobody thought, like, why would you turn heel when so much is still so good for the guy? But he turned heel anyway, and it was a shock. No one was shocked when John Cena turned heel. We all saw it coming. They told us it was coming. Had John Cena turned heel 5 years ago, it'd have been a shock. It just heel turns are supposed to shock you. And that one didn't shock you. But HBK and the Rocker, everyone loved the Rockers. HBK turning on Marty shocked people. Hogan shocked people. And there's some other big ones, but like those ones, Andre turning shocked people. But Hogan's, it was just too monumental. It impacted the business way too much for it to be anything else.
All right. Next one. Give your Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania main events.
Ooh, main events. Michael's Heart, Iron Man match. I hate the outcome so much, but WrestleMania 17, Hogan Austin. Austin turned. I'm sorry, 18. Yes, I meant 18. That's another top 5 heel turn.
Hogan Austin or
I said Hogan. I meant Rock Austin. I said Hogan. I meant Rock.
Rock Austin WrestleMania 17. Yep. Okay.
Yes, I was right. 17. Yeah, that's right. 17 Rock Austin. Yeah. I hate Austin. But that was a massive heel turn. Massive.
That's 2.
That's 2. So 2 more. Mania. I was happy for the result of this, even though the match itself wasn't that great, but it was big as far as impact and big as far as changing of the guard. And that is Hogan Warrior.
Oh, yeah.
Warrior's intensity was so palpable. And I loved it. Like the guy couldn't wrestle to save his life, but my God, his intensity as a kid, you just picked up on it. So that was a big one. And one more, WrestleMania. Main event. It's funny. I don't remember if Taker and Michaels was main event. I don't think it was. I don't think either of their Mania matches were the main event.
I believe their second one was.
Okay, then I would say that the second one, the last one, were Shawn's retirement match.
Okay.
That match is a top. That's a Mount Rushmore WWE match. Period. That's one of the best matches ever worked. It's a masterpiece. Yes, it's a masterpiece, man. Just
work of art. That is a very strong Mount Rushmore. Very, very strong. Those are some great picks, man. Great picks. All right. Last 2 questions, man. All right.
Okay.
You've been watching pro wrestling now, fair to say 30 plus years?
Yes.
So in those 30 plus years, I don't know if you've had any gaps in your pro wrestling fandom or not, but you have. Okay, and that's fine. But
well, I mean, I was young family, broke, couldn't afford cable.
All right.
couldn't watch.
All in all, still 30 plus years. What in that time, that entire time now, what keeps your pro wrestling fandom going?
Story. What drives entertainment, period, is story. If it's a video game, it's pro wrestling, it's sports. People lament about how much better basketball was in the 80s and 90s. Part of that is because the NBA was better at storytelling then than it was now. Is now. The NFL was better at NFL films are some of the best storytelling you'll see. Wrestling is storytelling. The only difference is it's predetermined at the end, and they take you through a roller coaster of emotions. But it's storytelling. That's what entertainment is about. Whether it's a movie, a television show, a sporting event, it's story of struggle, it's story of good versus bad, it's story of triumph and failure, heartbreak and loss. Um, Wrestling has done a great job of finding multiple ways of telling the hero's journey. Most modern stories are all versions of the hero's journey. Which, if you don't know, hero's journey is a Chinese story, tale of a Chinese man who goes off to the west and journeys. But both modern stories are modifications of that, and wrestling has done such a job with telling the hero's journey multiple ways through guys in their draws throwing each other around the ring and standing in front of a camera and talking trash back and forth to each other. But that's really what keeps me is these, a lot of these guys, phenomenal physical specimens and women now, these physical specimens who tell these stories, and they are able to enrapture your attention and your interest in that story. That's really what keeps me coming back. And that's why, the nostalgia is so strong for certain matches and such because of the story. The emotional moments we talked about before, tied to story, boyhood dream, story, players' retirement story, Shawn and Taker, 20 years of history of going back and forth story. The street fight between Shawn and Triple H, their best match, real life friends, bad blood, story.
Finishing the story, Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes finishing the story has been the biggest moment. Even though I downplayed it, Cena turning heel. To me, every big babyface deserves a chance to turn heel. And Cena gets to walk away finally being a heel and having a chance to have a run as a top guy as a heel. And I think he deserved it, even though I'm not a big fan of his. It's about completing the story, man. And Bruce Prichard, even though I don't like the guy, he's 100% right. The way to make the biggest babyface is turn him heel and let the fans start to love him again. Rocky was booed. They chanted, "Die, Rocky, die." They turned him heel. People started to like him, and he became the biggest babyface. Austin was getting booed. They turned him heel, and they made that heel a babyface and became Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's how you make the big baby faces. You turn them heel. And it's all about story.
Jeffrey agrees with you as well. It's storytelling.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
And I highly agree with you as well too. I've said this on multiple episodes, but I'm telling you now, Dominic Mysterio will be one of the most loved baby faces of all time because and this is my fantasy booking for him, where he's strayed away from the path that his father took to go his own way. He's in the wrong crowd, but then something is going to click where he's going to turn and that's going to lead him to finally embracing the Mysterio legacy, and he will have his own Mysterio mask. When a Mysterio mask is bestowed upon him and he puts it on, his own Mysterio mask for the first time, not one of these knockoff masks that he's wearing, which, by the way, he's paying tribute to legendary luchadors when he does that.
Yeah,
But when
some of those masks are. I saw the one he did that was oh man, who
at
was it?
AAA,
Yes.
yeah,
I forget whose mask it was, but I recognized it immediately. I'm like, oh, he's done that with his gear so often.
oh yeah,
I love what Dominic's been doing, and you're right. When he turns babyface, it's going to be huge. I don't know if
huge.
I don't know if he's going to don the mask because it's so hard to get masked wrestlers over continually and to sell. You sell faces so more than you sell masks in the American market. So I think they may keep him more and have him more go down a path that honors both Eddie and his father. But when he turns, baby, the crowd is going. He's going to do the right thing when no one's expecting it, and the crowd is going to go nuts.
Absolutely, man. And just like how another emotional moment that we didn't talk about earlier, but it kind of goes hand in hand. The moment that Cody Rhodes and Dustin Runnels embraced each other at All In. I don't need attack partner. I need my older brother. And they hugged after that bloody one-on-one match that they had. When Dominic turns face, he turned and say his father, Rey Mysterio, is the one that bestows the mask to him, and then they finally come back together and they hug it out. That moment right there just gives me chills just thinking about it. When everything just comes back full circle, and Dominic is the next one to carry that Mysterio legacy. He's going to be a huge babyface when that happens, and I can't wait to see it. I'm all here for it.
Me too. I 100% agree.
Jeffrey chimed in with a question here that I'm going to post up here for you. What female and male would you manage if you had a chance to be a manager?
That's an excellent question, Jeffrey. Okay, so I am
and he also wait till he wins that AAA championship this weekend. Big pop.
That would be a great time to do it too.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest. Okay, so if I was a manager, I have one male and one female I'm managing. Who would it be? Okay, so I was a big fan of. Okay, this is going to sound funny because of how much I talked about how much I hate Austin, but one of the few moments where I was digging Austin's work was during the 2-man power trip era before Triple H blew the quad. I was enjoying the Triple H and Austin 2-man power trip. So I would manage a 2-person power trip of Bobby Lashley and Bianca Belair.
Jesus Christ, those are some great picks right there. Oh my goodness. Those are some great picks to manage. Those two would be unstoppable.
They would be. I would have them run roughshod through the company. I would have them just break rules, show up on any show. Doesn't matter. They're not supposed to be on the show. Doesn't matter. What are you going to do? Who's going to stop them? Nobody.
Great picks. Jeffrey says, "Holy cow!"
Yeah, and I would manage the heck out of them. Especially running the, if they would be a short version of of the Hurt Business. It'll be we hurt people and we do it the EST. Like it would be, that black and gold everywhere. And also since I do like it, I would push for like an intergender tag championship. They would each have singles titles, but they would want to work together. So have an intergender tag championship that they would debut and Probably just kind of do the Taz FTW thing and just create intergender tag belts and dare people to try to take them off of them. Open challenge style. Yeah, I would have a ton of fun managing them and working creative for a Bobby Lashley, Bianca Belair mini stable.
Hell
Two-person power
yes.
trip.
I would be there for that. And I don't know if this is breaking news, but Jeffrey is also saying Ray's daughter is training with Natalia, Aaliyah Mysterio.
Well, if anyone's going to train, then Natty's the one to train. Now, I'm going to end with this. So it's an extra topic, but since he mentioned Natty Neidhart she's not my favorite. She's not my I think the GOAT is Manami Toyota, and my favorite's Molly Holly. But if I'm putting best women wrestlers, if I'm doing a Mount Rushmore I'm putting Natty Neidhart in there. She's had such a long career. You can trust her. She can perform with anybody. And I love that they're actually letting her do something, even though it's out here in the indies. But this current Natty, I don't understand why they hadn't put that on WWE TV. And I thought and this Natty should have been what they put on that Raw Underground when they were doing that.
Years ago, yeah.
That's what they should have put on there. For people they were struggling to get over, people that we know are grapplers who can flat out go, like Nick Nemeth, like Bobby Lashley, like Shelton Benjamin. When they were struggling to get them over and they threw them on Underground, they should have focused on the brutality, the ground game, and Natty is perfect for that. And why I don't understand. I don't understand some of the decisions they make, but what Natty's doing right now is fantastic work. She deserves another title run before she hangs it up in WWE. She more than deserves it. She is a top women's wrestler of all time by far. She's holding the Hart family name up in the highest regard.
I think Jeffrey has a name for your Bobby Lashley and Bianca Belair, the almightiest.
I love it. I dig that.
And then he agrees. The aggressive Natty needs to be on TV, and she's being very protective of that. And I'm glad that she is, so that they don't just
they don't take it and screw it up. Yeah, they don't screw it up. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Matt. We've reached the end where I have one final question for you, and It's been such a pleasure to have you on here, man. And I can't wait to hear your answer for this. But I ask this question at the end of every show because every time it's a different answer, and I love hearing everybody's perspective on it. Okay. So again, you've been watching for 30 plus years. Mm-hmm. What have you learned from pro wrestling in your time watching it that you carry on with you today, and that you want to pass along to future fans of pro wrestling?
Good question. This is going to be definitely it's definitely not probably what you're going to expect. One thing that I learned from pro wrestling that my co-host of our show, Breaking Ring Rust, he and I would think he would also agree with this, because it touches us both personally, spiritually, because he and I are both Christians. Is pro wrestling teaches so much about redemption. Turning heel, going down the dark path, the down path, and then fans embracing you when you decide to turn babyface into the right thing is a model of redemption, acceptance. You see it happen often where a known heel turns babyface, yet in the story, a lot of the other wrestlers don't trust him. They don't know if they can trust you yet. Prove yourself in the ring. I'll see you in this tag match. I don't know if I can trust you. You're all. I don't know if I can trust you, Orton. You're always backstabbing people. You're a snake. And I don't know if I can trust you. And then they have the match and they tease and And you think, oh, here he's gonna set him up, he's gonna stab him in the back. What he does, and then he does the right thing, and the crowd goes nuts and they're celebrating. And then and one thing that, and the parallel to Christianity that I'm making is that biblically, when you accept Jesus and your sins are forgiven, God views it as you've never sinned before. And that's how fans treat you when you've completed a full babyface turn. It's like you were never a heel. They love you. They're chanting your name. They're buying your T-shirts. They love you. It's like you were never a bad guy. And it's, for people that don't believe, that wonder if they can be redeemed from the mistakes that they make in life, pro wrestling is a great, display of how acceptance and redemption is there for everybody.
Nice, man. I really appreciate that answer. I think we see that so much. Like you said, when you have a heel that turns face, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. Love that answer. With that, we're gonna wrap it up here. This has probably become our longest episode yet of Hot Takes and Headlocks, and
I apologize. I apologize. I do that. I'm known. Triff, when I first started our show, we intended to have like hour episodes, and our first like 3 episodes were 4 hours long because we're known to go down rabbit holes. So I apologize. I have a tendency to ramble.
No, man, it's all good. I remember I told you, we're gonna try to make this an hour, but that rabbit hole is very easy to go down on, man. And I'm all here for it. I love hearing different perspectives. I love hearing just a different side to something. Like the point of this show is to unify fans with different perspectives about wrestling, because there's so many different ways to look at it, and and this just unifies us. And I learn more. I learn more because as long as I've watched pro wrestling, there are eras in pro wrestling that I haven't even dipped my toe into yet, because there's just so much to explore. So I appreciate it, man. I really do. And Jeffrey does as well, man. We need Matt again.
I appreciate the love, Jeffrey. Most appreciated.
Before we close this out, Matt, I want to give you an opportunity to be able to just, share where people can find you, your shows, your network, please. So plug this is your chance, man. Plug anything you'd like to plug.
So my network, it's called, the group, it's called Geek Nation. JEEK Nation. If you're wondering what a geek is, it's took the term jock, because I was a jock. I was also a big geek. So I took the words and smashed them together and coined the term geek. It's a jock who's also a big geek. So our primary show is called the Original Geek Podcast. We talk about sports and we talk about geek stuff. So we're talking about the NBA and anime and gaming and film, MCU, comic books, all that type of stuff. Our second show is the pro wrestling show called Breaking Ring Rust. I have to apologize to our listeners on that. It's been a while. It's been like a year since we were able to do an episode, just because of life. My co-host has had some medical issues, and life unfortunately has blocked us from recording a lot of episodes. But our most recent episodes are awesome. I encourage people to listen to them. One is with Chris Dreesbach of Three Legacies Wrestling, and the co-founder of Three Legacies Wrestling, Jesus Rodriguez, who most people know as Ricardo Rodriguez from WWE, the Valley manager of Alberto Del Rio. They were both guests on our show last year and had a fantastic time talking about the promotion, their lives in recovery. They're both recovering from substance abuse, and then the Three Legacies promotion. And then our third show is called Finalysis, which is the word fan and analysis together. Finalysis 101. That's a sports focused show where we talk more in depth around and analyzing the nuance of sports. You can find them all on, Apple, Spotify, Good Pods. Those are the three we prefer for engagement. Spotify, there's, you can comment, do the polls and such. But those are the best, and the same with Good Pods. You can comment and share and stuff with those. We like those most for engagement purposes because we'd like to hear what people think about about the episodes. But at almost any podcast platform, you can find our shows. If you search by name or just search Geek Nation, you'll probably find any one of the three shows. If you like, the thought of combining sports and nerd stuff, we do have a Facebook community that's almost 500 strong now on Facebook. If you just search Geek Nation, you'll find them the page and then the community page. Feel free to join. Share memes and we have fantasy football that we do every year as a community. And when we have the money from podcast revenue, the winner gets a ring and such. So help us grow. If you dig what we do, and if you don't dig it, cool. We know we're a niche because not everybody likes sports and geek stuff. We're a bit of a niche. We're never going to be 8 million strong, but we're looking for for more of our tribe.
Awesome. Guys, check out Geek Nation. All right. Jeffrey just chimed in saying he just subscribed to Geek Nation.
Appreciate it, Jeffrey. Thank you so much.
We appreciate that support. And as always, like and subscribe to the Hot Takes and Headlocks YouTube page. More the more support, the more eyes we have on this show, the more guests we can get on here. And Matt, you exceeded my expectations for what today's episode was going to be like. So it was such a pleasure to have you on this show, and I would definitely love to do another one with you. Let's keep in contact, please.
Absolutely.
Such great conversation, and at the same time, we just scratched the surface between all the stuff that we didn't get to talk about.
Right, because that's one thing about wrestling. There's so much that you can cover.
Yeah, and if in your network of podcasters, if you know anyone that would be a great fit to be on this show,
I'm already thinking of names to send you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And if you guys, anybody watching out there on YouTube, Facebook, if you are interested in being on a future episode of Hot Takes and Headlocks, my email is right under my Twitter handle, hottakesandheadlocks@gmail.com. You guys tune in next week, same time, Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Subscribe to Geek Nation. You'll be able to see more of Matt, a.k.a. Magic. We'll see you next week, guys. Thank you very much. Matt, pleasure to see you, man. Thank you.
My pleasure. Peace, everyone. Thank you.